Hey, what's up, guys? Um, Good morning on this beautiful, cold Sunday morning here in Kansas. Um, I just had Kiki up here, but she was having some technical difficulties. She was muted. But while she's getting that figured out, let's go ahead and get started on this video. It just goes to show you exactly what Trump knows and what he doesn't know. Like the wreck that happened this past Wednesday night between Flight 5342 and the Black Hawk helicopter. He's trying to blame everything on the DEI initiative, and he states that in this press conference.
Thank you very much.
Okay, hold on, I gotta do something. It's all messed up. Let's see here. Take. Mhm. Here we go.
I speak to you this morning in an hour
Hello.
of anguish for our
Hi.
nation. Before 9 p.m. last
Good morning.
night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal. And I have to say, the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast. It was mobilized immediately. The work is now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us suddenly. And we are a country of really, we are in mourning. This is really shaking a lot of people, including people very sadly from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent of very talented people. Unfortunately, we're on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now and in the days to come. We'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy Potomac, it was a cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us. Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. There's over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation, 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas, but we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job. When that happens, it's
Now, see, here's the thing about about Sean Duffy. Sean Duffy was the weekend host of The Bottom Line on Fox News with Dagan McDowell. So, and just like Pete Hegseth, he was the weekend host of Outnumbered with Harris Faulkner on Fox News. Yeah, and yes, Pete Hegseth, he is retired military, so he's the head of the DOD. But Sean Duffy, I don't think has ever done anything aviation before. And I got it on a good source. What Trump did a day after the Philadelphia plane crash, he dismantled the Aviation Safety Board.
The Aviation Safety Board?
Yeah, it was the day after the Philadelphia plane crash, which was 2 days after Flight 5342. He went in and dismantled the Aviation Safety Board, which was the most stupidest idea he's ever done. Because now the planes being built aren't going to have that check to see if they're safe or not to fly. Because in Trump's world, people shouldn't be flying anyway.
Well, I mean, I have a couple thoughts on this. Okay. So foremost, when you brought up Sean Duffy, and I wanted to say a couple things about him. So aside from him being a weekend co-host, he was a senator, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he served, he did give service to his country. Like, he does come with experience. I also like the fact that Sean Duffy is a devout Catholic, and he has a family. I think he has 9 children. So he just has like a really great perspective, I think, as a leader. So that's one thing I do think that maybe he does have some of the chops to do this. I certainly think he has as much as our last transportation secretary, Buttigieg.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to, I'm sorry.
And Carl is a huge Pete Buttigieg fan.
He's a huge Pete Buttigieg fan.
Yeah. Here's what Tonka just said. Let me be clear. Hegseth has been in the position a whole week. The problems began long before these guys came along. And Tonka is correct there. These problems are not just a single administration. Yeah, these problems go back like years, even before Trump ever thought about running for Congress. I mean, you'll go back to Reagan, Bush, Obama. Both Bushes, actually, baby Bush and senior Bush. These problems go back like decades.
Well, I have a tendency to agree with you, but I've heard some crazy, recently there's been some crazy info coming out about this. And when it comes to Pete Hegseth, again, I don't know, as far as his personality, but as far as his resume, he is a Harvard grad. Yeah. And he got his, I think he got his pre-law from Princeton, when he went. So he certainly has the qualifications educationally. And then he's a combat veteran on top of that. I mean, the fact that he was a weekend host, can you blame someone if they're born beautiful? It's not, I do see like where people poke at both Sean Duffy and Pete Hegseth, but I would poke more at Sean Duffy than even Pete Hegseth. He started out on The Real World.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't
That's
know
where he
that.
met his wife, Rachel.
Yeah.
Rachel Campos Tuppy. They were both on The Real World.
Tonka says the majority of the problems began in 1994. So, yeah, and that would be under the Clinton administration. Yeah, if I'm correct, Tonka. Am I right? And Deb Tabe's in the chat. Hey, Deb.
That's an interesting year though, because if it was the Clinton administration, then that means the Republicans held the purse strings. They held both Congress and the Senate at that time.
Now, have you noticed like the first Trump term, which was in 2017? It started out with all three branches of Republican control. Then Tonka says it was George H.W. Bush. He thinks it first started out as all three the Senate, the House, and the presidency was Republican controlled, and then in the midterms in 2018, that's when it flipped to Democrats in the House, and then Republicans in the Senate, and of course you had Trump in the White House. Yeah, the president's term is 4 years, but most normally during the midterms, either the House can flip to Democrat or the Senate can flip to Democrat. It's not always Republican control for the full 4 years. Now the only exception to that was George W. Bush, and this was around the time of the World Trade Center bombings. With the planes, 9/11 basically. And that was the only time the Republicans actually kept control of all three branches throughout the entire presidency. But most normally in elections, the president doesn't keep all three branches. It normally splits up around midterms, and the next midterm is 2026. So we could possibly see either the House flip to Democrat or the Senate flip to Democrat. It's going to be a miracle if he actually keeps all three branches of government Republican through 2028.
Yeah, I mean the balance does always swing. I think what's interesting, would you mind, like while we're on the subject, just strictly like talking about this aviation disaster, if you could pull up Tonka's comment from 1209. It says, "Hey Kiki" at the beginning. So it says, "Hey Kiki, the DEI hires are detriment. Some of these jobs require skill and dedication." So we had this conversation, Robert, a few days ago when you were giving me updates on this. And Robert and I had a very deep conversation about this because I just have questions. So the first one is, number one, we were talking about air traffic controllers, because every time somebody and again, this is just my personal opinion, I'm not an expert, but every time somebody tells me, well, the Black Hawk didn't have its night vision on, the Black Hawk was doing this, the Black Hawk was doing that, I kept thinking to myself, yeah, but that's why you have an air traffic controller to tell you if a missile is coming at 400 miles an hour in your path of takeoff. You know what I mean? That's why you have an air traffic. I mean, even if you had your radar on, would you be able to respond if a missile was coming at you 400 miles an hour? And so my point is, from the beginning, it sounded like an understaffing problem. To me, even when people told me.
That's exactly what it is. There's reports that have came out. Most normally in the air traffic control tower, there's a person for helicopters, and then there's a person for fixed wing jets. That night, there was only one person working the tower. and it was completely understaffed that night because most normally, because I watched the reports about it and I read up on it. Most normally, there's two people working the towers, one for helicopters and one for fixed wing jets. Like the regional jet that that was that was flying in that night. But the night of the collision, there was only one person working. So he was working double duty, and he was working a 36-hour shift. So yeah, and I mean, I hate the fact that even Trump. Yeah, I'll play the rest of the video here in a minute. Even Trump is stating that that the flight controllers, the air traffic controllers, are DEI hires. And I mean, it's not that I'm sure that this person who was working the tower that night feels really bad with what happened that night, and it wasn't his fault. He was understaffed.
No.
And I mean, he's even came out. He's even came out and said that he doesn't appreciate the president calling him a DEI hire when he's been with Reagan Regional Airport for 25 years, and this was the first time ever he's been understaffed.
Can I really would love to chime in just on a couple things you said, because it's a fascinating debate. And it's something that we all should be paying. Nobody should be quiet about this. It's something we really have to talk about, because it's been a problem for at least 10 years that I've been hearing about it. Definitely before the last Trump administration, this was a subject that came out with the air traffic controller. So the first thing is what the air traffic controller himself had said. He's got to come out with some statement, because his life is forever changed.
Yeah.
But anytime a leader takes a whole group of people and singles them out, that's hard for me. I want people who speak as one for their citizens. So I get that, and I do agree with him on that. But here's the problem for me is with this complete bullshit about understaffing an air traffic control tower. I mean, that's disregard for human life, as far as I'm concerned. If you are such a I am furious, because it's like, how dare you cancel the flight? You don't have enough people to cover safely so that possibility of hundreds of people dying. Just cancel the fucking flight. That's how I feel. If you don't have an air traffic controller, it's absolute disregard for human life. And I think it's a big problem in our society. I think that we don't side with life in so many areas that it takes our humanity away. And that's how I feel about this. And as far as the DEI hires, it is 100% notorious in the air traffic control industry for their DEI hires. And there was actually 1,000 applicants recently turned down for these positions that I was reading about. And I believe it was in the New York Post I read this.
Yeah, because Trump froze all federal hirings.
Mm-hmm.
Day one, through an executive order, he froze all federal and government hirings, and that includes air traffic controllers.
I agree, but that he'd only been in office for 3 days, so it couldn't have been affected for that day. You know what I mean? Like hiring someone and training someone for a position would take at least 2 weeks. I mean, realistically. So, I mean, it couldn't have been for that. Those 1,000 hires couldn't have been affected in those 3. And then I'm not contradicting you. I'm just giving my opinion, and I'm not used to talking about politics. So if I'm not coming off as gracefully, like if it comes off as I'm like contradicting you rather than having a conversation, I'm getting used to it. So I'm sorry, Robert. But that's my feeling on it, is that this industry is so notorious for never hiring someone on merit, but hiring them because they look a special way. And I mean, it boils back down to a leader shouldn't be grouping or lumping single groups of people out. We watched people do that in Nazi Germany. And so when I hear any leader do that, focus on one group, it pisses me off. People are people. People are people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And like the podcast I did with Carl last week, and you're a lot more graceful than Carl.
Oh,
We both know Carl comes off as a unapologetic asshole.
it's his
And
character.
um, no, uh, what's her name? Carolyn Levitt, who is the new press secretary. She is worse than freaking Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre, I didn't agree with her all the time, but she wasn't as big a spin doctor as this new press secretary. She literally stood up there at the podium, attacking DEI initiatives, attacking transgenders, and attacking this, attacking that, saying that in this administration, woke is dead. And we just like two federal judges, Kiki, two now have blocked the federal spending freeze because they both stated it was unconstitutional. Day one in office, this dude right here froze federal spending. Yeah, all federal government spending for about 3 days. He froze Medicaid because he thought it was wasteful spending. Mind you, there's 26 million people on Medicaid, low income people on Medicaid, and uh, one of his 300 executive orders, he cut funding to the Affordable Health Care Act, which is the Obamacare. He cut funding to that because he don't like Obamacare. So that affected even more. It even means more people who can't afford high health insurance. He increased the price of the Obamacare, like he doubled the price in the healthcare marketplace. A lot of people say that that Trump wants to save America. Well, his actions the last 11 days is not showing that. I watched this TikTok video last night, and this woman was explaining it. She's a Republican, and she used to be a Trump supporter, and everything he's doing, with the federal funding freeze, which is basically, uh, Congress controls the purse strings, and the president is not supposed to do anything without addressing Congress about it. Well, he usurped Congress and froze federal spending. The Senate, which is Republican controlled, but you have the Democrats in the Senate. Oh, he broke the law. He broke the law. He broke the law. Um, there's a lot of stuff going on, right now, and there's a lot of people saying that we're headed down the Vladimir Putin path. Yeah, yeah, I know, Tonka. So did Biden. But there's a lot of people that are saying that this presidency is heading down the authoritarian path. Because he looks up to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong Un, and I'll admit, I hope I'm wrong. Tonka, you hear me in chat. I hope I'm wrong, but it's just everything this you're seeing with these executive orders and everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, oh, I'm sorry, were you done? Did you want me to respond yet?
Tonka says it wasn't before. Yes, Tonka. Yeah, it was before. It just, yeah, a lot of people don't see that he's. Thank you, Carla, and I still love you, Carla. A lot of people just don't see that he's implementing Project 2025 through these executive orders. and I think I sent you the outline of what, yeah, the checklist for Project 2025, Kiki. It was been a while, but
No, I've read through that. I can't cite all the references on it, but I know exactly what, the different points that you brought up. And I do have some responses to what you just said too. I'm also posting this for my channel members so they know I'm here. The first thing I'm going to wait. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something more about Project 2025?
no.
Okay. The first thing I want to say is, and I was kind of telling Robert this, I'll say it to the chat. I was telling Robert this on the phone the other day. When people talk about President Trump and comparing him to Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un, the one thing I will emphatically say, and I know we're talking in terms of leaders and dictators, but I don't speak like that because I will never mistake communism for a constitutional republic. Whereas where Trump just cut what you were talking about, millions of these government jobs. The difference is in communism, you'd be hiring millions of people to control the masses rather than taking away that control. Like Trump is the exact opposite. I know I get the part of the narcissism and talking about leaders and fascism and concerns about that, or controlling the press, controlling, there are I definitely understand the parallels that people try to make, but I will never compare anything communistic to our beautiful constitutional republic. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is, as far as the executive orders, 100 of those were rescinding 100 executive orders that Biden did the day he came into office. And if you remember correctly, when Trump left office, we were getting a couple hundred people across the border a day, a reasonable amount that we could control, particularly when it comes to the minors, because we have a responsibility in this country to not take a baby and let it go wherever the frick you want. Oh, okay, we'll give it to you. You want the baby? I'll give you the baby. That's what they're doing at the border. And that's not right. That's like, we are a civilized nation. And so there were a couple hundred kids and people coming across the border when Trump was left office. That day, 100 executive orders came out rescinding almost every border policy that Trump had. And that's when we saw this onslaught of over 13 million people. So we have to remember, when Trump wrote 400 executive orders, 100 of them were sending a lot of these border issues that we had. And a few other, but they were mainly focusing on the border. A lot of those executive orders, when Biden came into the office, destroyed the system that Trump had built up in his previous administration. And now he's kind of just restoring what he had going on that was successful at the and so anyway, and then as far as the executive, the purse strings, that's true. But the executive office has a requirement to spend the money that's been allocated from Congress. So one of the things Trump was saying is, I'm not going to spend this money, because if the president is allocated money by Congress, by law, he's required to spend it. Do you see what I'm saying? So part of this is saying, well, you know what? I'm not going to spend this money that has been allocated to me by Congress. Now, when it comes to the Medicaid and the Medicare, that's a big deal to me. And we had this conversation, Robert, when you were talking about your concerns with health insurance. Yeah. There are contracts in place. If you have I'm just speaking to the audience in general, because I worked as an admin who ran a lot of insurance. Okay. Yeah. When it comes to Medicaid, just use your insurance. You can't just, you no longer have Medicaid. It doesn't work like that. You are on a contract. You're on a policy. It's the hospital's responsibility to negotiate with the government about your rates. So don't worry about it. Go to the doctor, use your health insurance. It's your hospital that's going to have to fight for that money, not you. That's none of your business. Don't worry about that. You bring your daughter to her appointments. You bring your daughter to get her medication, and let the assholes fight the assholes. Let the millionaires fight the millionaires. That's what they're doing. And I'm telling you right now, Medicaid only pays pennies. Like, I would do physical therapy, and a normal round of physical therapy where people would probably, they'd get paid like somewhere in the range of, like, an appointment would be somewhere in the range out of pocket of like $500 to like $750. Medicaid would only compensate about 2 pennies or 2 to 3 pennies for every dollar. So it's a very small portion of the industry in general. I mean, they're always fighting over this, always. And I mean, oftentimes Medicaid gets wrote off. So, I mean, the point I'm getting at is for the average person who's receiving these programs, don't worry about your programs. Let your hospital, let your provider worry about it. And that's what they're doing right now. That's basically, now when it comes to the pharmaceutical, pharmaceutical drugs, I mean, I would have to look extremely closely at that program to know whether I'm for it or against it, because our government is so shit deep in that industry. They're causing the problems to begin with by subsidizing assholes who make, I don't want to get into schmack schmeens. I don't even want to say the word on here. But when you have a government that's subsidizing schmack schmeen scam industries in some areas, like, you can't exactly have them negotiating down the prices that are ripping off our seniors right now. So when it comes to the pharmaceuticals, I would have to look at the policy before I formed an opinion on that. But as far as like Medicaid in general, that's kind of my opinion. And then,
okay, Tonka says Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. Au contraire, mon frere. The recently confirmed director of the OMB, which is the Office of Budget Management and Budget. I want you to go check on this Tonka. His name is Vought. I don't know his first name, but he is the chief architect of Project 2025, and he now has a government. He now has a government job as director of the Office of Management and Budget. And he is the chief architect of Project 2025. Okay, what's it say here? Actually, Tonka, I love that we can have these debates and always remain civil. Project 2025 is the brainchild of the Heritage Foundation. And the Heritage Foundation is a Christian conservative group. Now, I didn't know this till I've been doing some research on the Heritage Foundation. Mike Pence is a distinguished fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Justices Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Gorsuch all came out of the Heritage Foundation. Yeah, they were legalese for the Heritage Foundation. And now they're Supreme Court justices. You've had Stephen Miller, who's the policy advisor. He works through the Heritage Foundation. So you have I know Mike Pence is a rhino, but Tonka, I'm just asking you, do some digging into it. Yeah, like I'm doing, because I know that I know you have a good a good mind and a good personality. I'm just asking you, please do your research into the Heritage Foundation, and you'll be surprised what you see.
Do you want me to read you there's a quick paragraph right here. There's in Wikipedia of what the Heritage Foundation is. Do you want me to read it real quick? All right. The Heritage Foundation, sometimes referred to as Heritage, is an American conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C., founded in 1973. It took a leading role in the conservative movement of the 1980s during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, whose politics were taken from the Heritage Foundation studies, including Mandate for Leadership, which is another foundation. The Heritage Foundation has had significant influence in U.S. public policy making and has historically been ranked among the most influential public political organizations in the United States. In 2010, it was founded it founded a sister organization, Heritage Action, an influential activist force in the conservative and Republican politics. The Heritage leads the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, also known as Project 25, an extension plan that includes an appointed ideological aligned civil servants, strictly restricting abortion access. Okay, first thing is, I'm not going to read on because okay, guys, I got to just voice this. I have a problem with Wikipedia. I am a nerd. I am a 100% full-blown Wikipedia nerd. I have been since many years. I give during the season of giving, and on my top of my list was always Wikipedia. I believed in their mission. And somewhere along the line, my favorite website turned into a pile of stinking crap. It is not right to have an article like this and have it locked where the people who are in that organization can't come and update it. So when I'm going to read that third paragraph, it is biased. It is obviously written by people against the Heritage Foundation. And that's not the point of Wikipedia is free speech. And that's why I loved it. It was like, okay, let's bring information to everyone who can't afford it, you know, and then you get these people who skewer Wikipedia. And I'm so bad. I'm not under my Swamp Rose name right now, so I can talk some shit because I'm not lending my brand, but I haven't donated. I'll just put it like I haven't donated, and I was an avid donor for most of my life. Even when I was broke, I would donate to them. I haven't donated to them in at least 5 years. I'll be honest. So well, maybe a little less than that because they do get me sometimes. I'm there. Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Tonka says same group. Heritage Foundation is the same group that trashed Candace Owens.
Everybody trashes Candace Owens. Candace Owens does a pretty good job of setting her damn self up.
True.
She her.
Scott likes what we're doing right now.
Oh, hi, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, he says, I like this, Swamp.
I do too. I think it's important that we talk about this. And I'm so excited when I talk to you because you have such a different perspective than me. And it's so nice to hear, like you and Carl definitely bring a lot of things to my eyes. I want to talk.
He's also an unapologetic asshole, and he'll tell you that too. I'm an asshole.
That's what makes things entertaining. You know what I'm wondering about? I heard in a press conference the other day, and I'm not trying to change the complete subject, but I think it's super relevant to all of us, is I heard Trump talking about lifting some regulations on rare earth minerals in the United States.
Yeah, he's signed an executive order to deregulate the rare earth minerals. He also wants to drill in the Antarctic. I don't know what he wants to drill for. It might be the rare earth minerals he wants to drill for. And he also has this initiative now called Project Stargate. And I didn't stutter, it's Stargate. And when he said that, first thing I thought was, okay, when did James Spader come into the picture? You know, the movie Stargate. And
I remember Stargate. My grandpa took me to see it actually in the movie theater a long time ago. That just told you all how old I am. Okay, so these are fascinating subjects. Before we get into the rare earth, the oils, the drilling in the Antarctic. That's a tough one for me, you guys. I do not. I wish we weren't on fossil fuels, but I also don't want. I also know there's no way for a certain population of this planet to survive without them. I also know our industry and our economies can't survive without fossil fuels. With that said, somebody's got to get the oil. And right now, what we're doing is our country is like a bunch of, as far as I'm concerned, when we have one political party come into power, our country turns into a bunch of ostriches and shoves their freaking heads in the ground and doesn't look what they're doing. Because guess what? If you look where the offshore drilling goes, when America shuts down their drilling, it's heartbreaking. You guys think that oil spill was bad in the Gulf of Mexico when Obama got elected? That was nothing. Go to Africa and see the daily oil spills that they get from uncapping their oil spikes at the bottom of their ocean. We offsource this crap to third world countries who don't have the capacity to do it in a clean way. And then on top of it all, the refining of the oil to make it into gas. That process is done best and cleanest in the United States. In other countries, it's a massive problem of pollution. The point I'm getting at is if somebody's going to do it, it probably should be the leader in innovation. It probably should be the leader in green energy, the place with the most regulations, and that's the US. And if we're really going to, what it feels like the US is doing is they're acting like the privileged country. Oh, okay, we're gonna allow scorched earth and the pillaging of other nations so that we can pretend that everything's like in a magic electrical, no emissions here. My iPad has no emissions. Well, the amount of children who were exposed to cancer causing agents to get your rare earth for your iPad, and the amount of people who have to destroy their natural environment for you to have the gas to produce the energy to create that iPad. And then you delusionally think that your iPad has no emissions involved with it. It's like,
Yeah.
when we talk about Trump lifting rare earth regulations in the US, it is probably the most refreshing thing I've heard, because right now, if you guys don't know what happens in Africa, they have little babies doing it because they have smaller fingers. It's easier for them to get the rare earth minerals out of it. And then you look at these, the centers of these towns, this is the only commerce they have, is these mines that come in from China. It's like as big as like 3 football fields, like completely scorched earth, and that runoff from the products they use to rinse the earth goes into their water supply, and they've permanently destroyed these areas. And it's disgusting. It's like, if you have a problem with this, guess what? Every single one of us, if you're watching this right now, you're part of the problem, because you have to have rare earth to have any of these electronics. And again, it's like that ostrich syndrome. We're going to just put our heads in the sand and pretend we're not, little children aren't being tortured for us to have our iPhone.
Yeah, Steelhawk joined us. Greenland purchases make sense. We have an abandoned military base there from World War I and II. There are like 2,000 miles of underground tunnels too. But the prime minister for Denmark stood up in front of the UN, and he was addressing what was going on with Greenland and Trump, and he stood up. He said, "I have a message for Mr. Trump." He said Greenland has been a part of Denmark for 800 years. He said I just have 3 words for you, Mr. Trump. Fuck off, Mr. Trump.
Go ask Jamaica. Go talk to Jamaica. It's like, who do you want to be your colonizer? Is it a colonization? You affiliate. All these countries who were part of colonization or were originally settled by another country, they have to make a choice. Do we want to keep up and be part of this larger government that helps us with our infrastructure and our tax base, or do we want to be independent and do it all on our own? And I think, as far as proximity, I mean, it's closer. Is it necessary? I don't know. But the other part of this is that from a business standpoint and population growth, I know these things play a role when it comes to developing your cities and towns and your population. So I don't have that mind, but I do know that Trump, being a businessman, he sees some value in that I might not understand, or I probably should understand.
Phil Briggs, we surely can survive without fossil fuels. It's called nuclear power. It's not just profitable for the petroleum lobby. It's safe enough to power all submarines and aircraft carriers. And
I agree.
then Carla says, Trump isn't the first president that had his eyes on Greenland. See, I want to get back to Phil's comments. And Carla stated this in the past as well. We should have been moving towards green energy 20 years ago. And like with what happened with 9/11. George W. Bush was an oil man. So, and you've had a lot of soldiers from that time period have come out and said that their main job over there in Afghanistan was to guard oil fields, and that wasn't to stop like terrorist attacks in the oil fields. That was so oil companies could come in there, extract the oil from Afghanistan, bring it back over here, and sell it for a higher profit. And I agree with Carl, to the point where we should have been striving for green energy 20 years ago. If we would have been doing that, our consumption on fossil fuels would have been subsided by now, and we would be on green energy. And one of the first things Trump did, he's defunded the Green Energy Initiative. and he thinks that fossil fuels will will keep us going for the next 100 years, which may not which may not be the case. We don't know that. We should have been already on green energy 20 years ago, or at least have the infrastructure set up for the green energy. But because Trump hates green energy and calls it a green energy scam, and has completely defunded the green energy initiative now, it may be another 40 years before we're ready for green energy.
Well-
which has considerably set our country back as far as green energy initiatives. I mean, look what happened in California. You had Gavin Newsom. He banned the sale of all new gasoline-powered cars, and a lot of people there were driving EVs, electric vehicles. And then he'd turn around and say, "Oh, don't charge your vehicle at all until nighttime. Don't run your air conditioner when you're not home, because it would everything that's going to happening in California is rolling brownouts because their electric grid is not set up for green energy. So you're having rolling brownouts because of all the EVs being charged at once."
And because of the issue with the Colorado River, which I don't even know if we'll
Yeah.
get to because we have so much to go over right now.
Okay, Tarak said something like 500 million pounds of nickel under a part of Alaska waiting to be mined too. And Phil
Okay.
says Chernobyl scares still looms large in the minds of the masses. More square miles are devastated annually by wildfires than nuclear has ever. And then Tarak said again, Elon Musk needs a lot of nickel for his creations.
All right. I want to take the floor for just a minute. I want to respond to a few things you said. So the first thing is that was an interesting perspective you gave from your friend that served in Iraq. And it made me think back to like how we got to Iraq in the first place, which I think we got to Iraq through Kuwait. Isn't that correct, you guys? Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the invasion of Kuwait that got us really involved.
No, I was talking about Afghanistan. I was talking about Afghanistan.
Oh, we're talking about
it was-
Afghanistan?
Yeah, it was right after the 9/11 attacks. And we were looking for Osama bin Laden, and he was in Afghanistan.
So my point was in that region, one of
Middle
the
East, say.
the Middle East region is Afghanistan's a good it goes with my example as well, is when you are investing millions and millions of dollars, you decide to go to war and you decide to commit war. I'm going to say it like it is. It's called the spoils of war. If you are rebuilding the infrastructure of a nation that has been, you can fund that through the oil. So, I mean, why should I pay for some person's road enough? I mean, I'm just literally, I'm not saying me, I'm saying as a hypothetical, why should I as a citizen of America pay for that road if I have an obligation because we blew up that road? Well, if we were helping, as far as like our logic behind it, why should I pay for that road if you have a whole pocket full of money over here to pay for the road? You pay for the road. If that's the way that I feel about the spoils of war. And then as far as when we talk about nuclear energy, don't forget that, and we talk about the fossil fuels and how Gavin Newsom had banned gas-powered vehicles and only allowed the EVs. You guys, one EV battery. So these batteries, to dispose of them, they're the size of the car. The space, the actual space to store one of these batteries, that's only the life of the car, is a massive problem. We don't know how we're going to take all these lithium ion batteries and safely dispose of them. Now, there are recycling processes, but they're so inefficient. They're all under 30%, and we're just not there yet. So these toxic green cars are polluting our environment right now, and we don't know what to do about it. But even worse than that, when we talk about the Green Energy Initiative, what's more toxic than an EV battery are solar panels. Did you guys know that? Solar panels are one of the most toxic waste products in our landfills right now, and you have to dispose of them very, very, very specifically. Green energy is not only not where it should be to be efficient, because you have to create so much energy to actually make the product for the green energy, but green energy itself, the products we're using are dangerous, they're toxic, they require basically human trafficking for slave labor. And so I want to bring that up when it comes to our alternatives. So when it comes to nuclear, it does get very appealing because also, you know, it also has an awful disposal process, but they at least had come up with a solution for disposing of the spent uranium. And then the rolling blackouts, we'll get to the rolling blackouts in a second. The Green Energy Initiative, the Green New Deal, that think tank that came up with that was not, I don't believe it was necessarily a science-based initiative, because if you remember, AOC came up with the Green New Deal. And AOC had a group of people surrounding her, and none of them had a background in science. None of them even really had a background in I mean, she was an economics major, but I don't think she had any real world experience in economics. She was like a bartender before she got recruited to be a politician, I think. If I'm wrong, correct me in the chat.
She was a bartender.
So one of the things, and we're built, you know, everyone knows I have a small business. We build houses. If you want to talk about code, you want to talk about a housing shortage, implement a Green New Deal that requires you to build houses that are unreachable for a person who's not upper middle class. When you start requiring the new houses to be at a level that people just can't obtain, well, what's going to happen? The only people who can afford this are landlords and slumlords and people with money and real estate investors. You or me can't afford a house when you Green New Deal the shit out of the code, you know? And then with the rolling blackouts, I am like, before I became conservative, I became conservative at a very specific point in my life, like when I was 19. But I've always been an environmentalist. It's my passion. I love the environment. I love nature. And what's going on with the Colorado River is just, again, it's the head in the sand bullshit that we see from people. Oh, I'm too good to destroy my environment, so I'm going to destroy the shit out of this environment over here and just pillage and take the crap out of it so that their animals and their people don't get the benefits of the Colorado River. While I'm just going to let a shiner fish that's probably going to go extinct anyway, you know, in this particular river. And I'm just going to, it's just a big FU with those rolling blackouts. And maybe I don't understand the subject enough, but go look up the Colorado River and see how they miscalculated the amount of water in there. It's going dry. The water pressure is going dry. It's supplying so many states with water. And it's like, well, what about the animals that need the water on the Colorado River? What about our system? You know, the same thing when you look at the Mississippi and the damming and the manipulations of the Mississippi River. When we need those wetlands and those spillover places and those floodplains so that we can grow the vegetables and the food that we need for our people, you know. But when you manipulate a river that is meant to supply us with the nutrients we need, and you do that so that you can have your stupid green energy, you know, it's like, I guess humans are better than all other creations on this planet, you know, F the deer, F the, you know, mountain lions, F the, you know, that's what I'm saying. I hope you guys.
Oh, congratulations, Angel.
Oh, Angel D is here.
You're the very first mod on this channel.
Who?
I just modded her on this
Angel
channel.
D?
Yeah. You're next.
Are you playing favorites, Robert?
No. But you know, I like Phil Briggs's comment right here. The amount of antifreeze to cool those batteries is 30 to 35 gallons, 1 to 2 in your gas fueled car. That's a hazmat spill of significant level with every accident plus battery assets.
Never even thought of that, Phil. Oh my gosh, I just like want to like that comment. I'm never gonna forget that comment.
Yeah,
Think how
and
deadly antifreeze is.
no, here in the news recently, one of Elon Musk's battery storage facilities blew up. It blew up and caught on fire, and that was one of his largest one of his largest Tesla battery storage facilities in the UK, and it blew up.
That's probably an environmental tragedy.
I would say too, especially since I believe a majority of those Tesla batteries are made out of lithium ion or some shit like that.
Yeah. I don't even know, I don't even know where to begin. Like, how do our local fire, like, I think of my local, this is a small town. Well, it's a small city. And I think to myself, like, what, like, how does I guess maybe if you're a fire department around Elon Musk's, battery plant, you know how to handle that. But like, how do you handle these environmental disasters that,
Yeah. And
like the chemical plants and stuff that go up?
Yeah, I mean, there is one good thing out of this president. He has actually rolled back the EV mandates for, that Biden rolled out. How Biden was touting, EV this, EV that. Everyone needs to drive an electric vehicle. Trump actually rolled back the mandates for electric vehicles and stating that people in this country can't afford, everyone can't afford to buy an electric vehicle. So he rolled back the electric vehicle mandates that Biden rolled out, and I believe that was one of the executive actions that he repealed with his executive action.
Yeah. And I don't want to change the subject, but I just saw something that I think you're really interested in that I don't think you saw in the chat, Robert, that I know you want to talk about. If you go to 1254, Tarot says, oh, what's this? Isn't that crazy?
99.5% of all species that ever existed on this planet have already gone extinct. Okay, is this one? A guy recently illegally flew a small glider plane through the Grand Canyon and says they are Egyptian looking.
You guys, I've heard a lot of this too. I've also heard in some of these caves, in some of these tombs, there's irregularities in the human remains as well. I thought this was a fascinating subject. And I always think of what's that film? What's the name of that book? Casa Mesa. It's by that famous, oh God, I'm gonna draw a blank right now. That famous author, that famous American author. The Casa Mesa. You guys know what I'm talking about. I just think about. I'm gonna look it up.
It says now consider the sheer weight of the batteries and cooling system, let alone the frame to support it. Where does all the inertia go in a rollover accident on your head?
I never thought of it like that, but you can't really counteract that. You're not gonna,
Yeah.
No, is the weight of an EV, is it it's heavier than a regular car?
Yeah, it's like a ton or two heavier, I believe. Angel D just said, I'm hoping Australia follows suit. RE electric cars. They wanted us to be all electric cars by 2030, allegedly.
I just feel like by 2030, are we really going to be using roads anymore? I mean, haven't you guys seen the occupiable drones? They're so cool.
Have you seen Back to the Future 2? Yeah, roads. Where we're going, you don't need roads.
Exactly. And it's Louis L'Amour, I think. I can't find the book though. And I think the book is called Casa Mesa. But I mean, there's
Yeah.
just so many old stories about. We know there was a land bridge. We know that there are connections we just haven't unearthed yet. And when you talk about some of the most remote and isolated places in the entire US, definitely these canyons are one of them. Some of the only ways to access these canyons are through an airplane or by boat, and the rapids are just too dangerous to go into them. So some people have never, modern people have never seen some of these canyons.
Yeah. Now, Angel D said she likes she likes seeing the side of Phil Briggs. Now, consider that in a powerful collision, the EMS will employ the jaws of life and rip saws to rip open and segment a vehicle. Is that possible or safe with a rolling hazardous battery pack? She's
It puts
talking
everybody
about,
in.
Phil's talking about, if there was like a really bad wreck between a regular car and an EV, and you know how the fire department and EMS uses jaws of life, to get in to save somebody if it was a rollover wreck. And I believe what Phil is saying is that possible or safe with a rolling hazardous battery pack like an electric vehicle.
I think the answer is no, but it's weird that we're not having these conversations like on the news. Like you think that this affects everyone.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. But I do appreciate this, Phil, because some of these points about the electric vehicles, I mean, I know some of the major talking points in their manufacturing and getting rid of them, but some of these I hadn't thought of, these real life issues.
Angel D is it's like the powers that be want us to be completely controlled. Can you imagine if someone had the power to shut down the power grid? Ultimate control.
We had an ice storm in New Hampshire in 2008, and it was I'm just going to tell you guys, I woke up, I happened to be staying at my parents' house. I was living in Nashua. Had just moved in with my parents. I was only supposed to be there through Christmas. Okay. It was like December, it was beginning of December. So I was only supposed to be at my parents for like 3 weeks or something like that. I woke up one morning to gunshots. I heard gunshots. I just came out of bed. All I heard, boom, 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 pow, 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 pow. I'm like, what the heck? It wasn't a gun. I looked out the window and I was hearing fully grown trees snapping in half.
Wow.
All throughout the woods. It was the most craziest thing I've ever experienced. I literally thought I was under fire. And it was fully grown trees snapping.
No one
because there was an ice storm.
I said, no one could ever shoot at you, Kiki.
And I was like, not in this neighborhood, at least. Like, but it was an ice storm, and they had ice had come. It had iced the entire all of like southern New Hampshire. The point is, we ended up losing power, and we ended up losing power for almost 2 weeks. And the conditions that your life deteriorates into when you don't have power is insanity. I mean, it's absolute insanity. Like the things that I saw, like when it was quiet, you could hear everything. I'd hear a chainsaw go off and we'd like get in our car to go think somebody was stealing our firewood from the side of the road. It was crazy, you guys. My elderly aunt, like made her way through, like, she had to drive like 5 hours around trees that were blocking roads to come to our house because she's elderly and she had no way to cook food, heat her house, get some water. She was just a sitting duck in her house. So she found a way to get to my parents' farmhouse where we could at least cook on a fire stove. But my point is that, and I watch the people around me too. And I mean, I can talk about the resilience of people, but when you lose power, it becomes third world living conditions really quick, and it's less than a week. And we put up with it for like 3 weeks. And if it weren't for like getting some areas of the power grid, like being able to go outside of our danger zone, I don't know how we would have survived. And I'm positive our communities, the way they were, would have fallen apart. There was no way to sustain what we have right now, what we live in. There's no way to do this without power. There's no version of this without
Oh,
power, at least
absolutely.
where it gets cold in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of glad here is starting to warm up a little bit. Um, yeah, it's starting to warm up here finally. Yeah. Yeah, my daughter's been sick and she's been on a nebulizer for 3 days. So, yeah, I'm kind of, thankful that she's getting better and my wife's getting better. Now I'm getting sick again. So I started doing the nebulizer last night and I feel better today.
Wait, do you wear
But
the dragon mask when you do the nebula?
no. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't wear the dragon mask. I just have the one little attachment that goes in my mouth and my daughter says, "Daddy, you look like you're on a ventilator." I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, don't send Daddy there just yet.
His
Yeah.
daughter, Caitlin, you can see in the background, she has a nebulizer. And what the doctors, when they prescribe him now to the kids, it's like a little dragon mask. So they like breathe out smoke. It looks like they're breathing out smoke when they use it. Makes it
Yeah, I'll
fun.
actually show it to you. It's in the background. Hold on.
63 degrees in Georgia, sweater weather.
Where's your dragon mask go?
I'm going to tell you what temperature is in Cape Cod right now. Of course, I'm in a very mild part of Cape Cod, so it's always nicer here. I wanted to go to Provincetown today, which is like at the very tip of Cape Cod. It's one of my favorite places. Oh, let me see. Let me see.
Here, let me see.
Probably, whatever you do, nebulizers and smoking cigarettes.
Have a hole on the tip.
Okay, Miss Perfect.
And it have like
It's perfect.
these scales.
Well, dragons have scales too.
Oh, and the dinosaurs, see?
Okay, step back on the table. Oh my God, she's gonna be right about everything.
Not bad.
I was kind of hoping I would raise her to not be right all the time. Well, now apparently she's trying to take after Daddy. Daddy tries to be right all the time.
Well, you don't want her to think about it. Think about her future man in the way you're treating her right now.
Yeah, I love her to death. Don't get me wrong. I feel sorry for her future man.
Don't feel sorry.
But
29 degrees. Hey, Phil says hi to Caitlin.
she's off in her own little world in her bedroom eating her. I ordered Pizza Hut last night and it came with like cinnamon breadsticks. So she's off in her own little world in her bedroom eating her cinnamon breadsticks.
I like those Domino lava cake brownies. I don't know if they still make them. There's not a Domino's on Cape Cod. I don't think so. There's no fast food around here. None. There's actually, I take it back. There's a Burger King in Orleans. But you have to go to like the beginning of Cape Cod. They don't allow fast food around here. So
yeah, I remember that, Phil. Robert,
Yeah,
do you remember when I heard to tell us a story?
Why do you say that, Angel? No, I'm just saying I was surprised he didn't. I think that's wonderful, Angel. You're top mod.
I said you'll get one. So will Christy. I mean, this is this was just the last time I tried to mod you, it wouldn't let me, but I guess because I didn't I guess because I didn't have that many subscribers. When I went to check it today, now I can fucking mod. I'm thinking what the fuck happened in the last week?
Well, now we're cooking with
But no, I like, you know, I mean,
Wait.
I like the discussions Carl and I have, but at the same time, I like the discussions you and I have more. Because uh, Carl makes his very valid points when he's not coming off as a fucking asshole. Um, and he's ruffled freaking Carlos feathers the wrong way a couple of times too, to the point where she left a like and fucking left the chat. And I like the fact that that you and I have this, we have an active chat. I mean, there's like 8 people watching. Last week when Carl and I did ours, we had 1 person watching, and I think it's because he comes off as very brash, and he comes off as like a know-it-all. And I mean, yeah, Carl says Carl is okay, lol.
What? I could put up my
I mean, yeah, and I've known Carl for almost 30 years. I bet actually about 23 years. I mean, he is a good person, good friend. But he also he's very opinionated when it comes to certain things, especially his views on Trump. He absolutely fucking hates Trump. And he said he didn't like Biden either. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so what do you want? He said he wants, it wants a government that doesn't push the octogenarian, like Trump is 78 right now, and 2 years he'll be 80. And the least older person that was running was Harris. And I mean, and it's a shame that I'll make you a mod too, Phil. Hold on. And it's a shame that she lost the way she did. Because I mean, I like legitimately feel like I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, Kiki, but I feel like the election was stolen from her. And there's
In what
there's
way? Like voter irregularity, are you saying?
yeah, and I'm not trying to sound like it. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there is an actual video floating around on TikTok, and Carl shared it with me. Trump admits to rigging the election.
How would he do that? He wasn't in power.
Okay. The voting machines were hooked up to Starlink. Who owns Starlink? Elon Musk owns Starlink. If the voting machines were hooked up to Elon Musk's own internet service, all Elon has to do is just go in there and switch a few things around because he's good at fucking computers. And Trump even stated in this little speech that that old Elon went to Pennsylvania to campaign for him, and I'm glad old Elon knows his way around a computer system.
Okay. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. All I'm going to say is I'm hearing your concerns. I have all the same concerns. I think that electronic voting machines are absolute bullshit. That every civilized country in this entire world who has fair elections has paper ballots. End of story. Get over it. My grandmother used to be part of the voting committee in our city where they'd make freaking coffee and they'd help the vote counters. Now, I'm not suggesting you don't have something that tallies a vote electronically, but here's the thing is you should be able in sections to audit each vote. And you also have to have a trail as to where each vote came from, so that when you're in Philadelphia and they turn off the lights, people can't pull out a bunch of suitcases that say, oh, I voted for Biden, like in 2000 and, and like in 2020, allegedly.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Like, we have to have chain of custody for all of our votes, and we should be paper ballots, and we shouldn't have a voting machine where you're like, boopity boop boop. How are we to tell what somebody actually voted for? And how
Yeah.
are we to tell if somebody voted twice or not if you don't have chain of custody? It's all basic shit. And Robert, if you're concerned about it as a, whatever you are, and I'm concerned about it as a libertarian, I think we found common ground here. I
Yeah.
think we found common ground.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
This is not right. Somebody can manipulate the system. We need to
Yeah, my freaking new earbuds are messing up. God.
Is that mic new?
No,
Is that the
it's
one you
not
were telling me about?
No, it's not new. My new one's gonna be here tomorrow.
I
Yeah,
can't wait.
I'll actually show you a picture of what it looks like.
Okay. They're on to us. That's what Agent B is saying. So I got these glasses in Provincetown at a place called Shop Therapy. You guys should look it up online.
That's
It's
it.
nice. It's nice. I'm gonna get a
Yeah,
jacket. I'll be right back.
It's actually a professional.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get one too. I might get the same one as you, so we are twinning.
I like what Bill just said.
What?
Two different ends of the spectrum at Carla. Like him or hate him, the last 4 years were something in the monkey enclosure at the zoo.
Wait, put it back up. Put it back up. Two different ends of the spectrum. I hate them the last 4 years.
Oh, we're like living. Yeah, it's supposed to be we're like living.
Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you. It's about Kamala Harris. Okay. You saying the other part of that was that in general, she didn't get a fair shake. And I asked you, were you talking about voters, if you were talking about irregularity in voting? But you were touching base on another thing, which is, did she get a fair shot at running for president? And I think we can all agree, if you have a shortened period of time to run for president, you're at a disadvantage. But she did come in pretty strong. The one thing I will say is when I look at Kamala, I think back to the presidential primaries in 2019. And if you guys remember correctly, she couldn't even get 2% of the Democratic vote. She was not appealing to the Democrat base. She didn't have the when she would go to the crowd to throw that red meat, to your base, so to speak, where you give those key talking points that gets everybody riled up. She just couldn't do it. She had this infantile, spacey type way of talking that just never resonated with anyone. And then when she came back in, and I'm just, as somebody on YouTube, observe myself and can observe this woman, and it's like, you got a chance to run for president, a second chance. You artificially, without a primary process, were anointed the presidential candidate. Could you just listen to people give advice? Like, don't talk like a freaking infantile way. You know what I mean? Like, people listen to you when you spend some time and consciously speak in a proper tone. And like, it's just so obnoxious when people are fake, inauthentic. It's like, who are you trying to appeal to?
When she laughs, she cackles. Yeah.
What the heck? Why would you do that? Why would you wouldn't do that to your husband when he comes home? Why does Hillary Clinton and Kamala do that to the nation when they talk? Or maybe they do that to their husband when they come home. I don't know. Would you imagine if your wife cackled like that at you? It wouldn't feel very good.
I would put my earbuds in and never take them out. But no. Well, just like a Jimmy Curtis, just like a Jimmy Curtis funeral, and this was after the election. You had Kamala and her husband, Doug Emhoff, sitting in front of the Obamas, and then sitting next to Obama was Trump, and then you could sit there, you could sit there and watch it, and you could clearly see, Kamala look back at Obama and Trump sitting there and like talking and giggling and everything else. And you could see the clear sign of the show of disgust on her face. After this person endorsed her, which was Obama and Michelle Obama, and they had this whole love and joy thing going into the Democratic National Convention. We all just need joy and love, and we're gonna beat Trump, and Trump this, Trump that.
I have the soundbite. I'm pulling it up. Keep talking. I'm going to pull up the soundbite. I edited a perfect soundbite with everything from that. I mean, really, I'm going to blow you guys' mind. Hold on. I'll pull it up in here, Robert. I have it in my pictures, but
Okay.
Everything. I mean, you guys, I don't know if you saw it, but George Bush comes up to Obama, gives him like a belly tap. It was like, they're like, gross.
Yeah, like
Obama was like
a fist bump in the belly.
It was crazy. Hold on. Yeah, I'm pulling it up. I have the best soundbite about that. If you guys can just hold on.
Yeah, Angel D says, I hate when YouTube creators use their giving and removing of wrenches as manipulation and a power rush, in my honest opinion. And Angel, I'm not like that. I'm not that type of person. Once you get a wrench on my channel, you will always have the wrench, unless you come to me and say, hey, yeah, can you take my wrench? That's the only time I'll ever remove a wrench from somebody is if they don't want it no more, or like I had to remove a few wrenches here a few nights ago because a few of the people just don't come to the channel no more, and so I just removed them as mods because I don't see them anymore.
I have no comment. No, I'm just kidding.
Phil said, if you're being honest, Ms. Harris has never been elected to any position ever. She's been in unimaginable positions, to be certain, not even one. And yet, I don't know if you know this, Kiki, but the role of the vice president's job is strictly ceremonial. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Wait, you mean the vice president's job, did you say?
Yes, the vice president's job is strictly ceremonial. That's how they lay it. That's how they lay it out in the Constitution, that a vice president's job is strictly a ceremonial job. They're there to they're there to like break a tie in the Senate, or count the electoral votes, or if the president like sends them to like another country to talk to a world leader. But their primary function in the administration is nothing. It's ceremonial.
Well, I found this video. Let me share it with you. I'm going to send it direct message to you. This is a 6-minute video, but it's interesting, and it makes like a really great discussion. It's up to you if you want to play it, but it shows everything. So it shows the interaction between Bush and Obama. It shows the interaction between Kamala, Obama, and Trump. It shows the Clintons coming in and slighting the Bidens, and then it shows a few things. It's just fascinating. This is Jimmy Carter's funeral. It was literally like watching a group of celebrities. I've never seen so much viral tweets coming out of something like this.
Now, do you also know that all those celebrities and that was endorsing Kamala was actually paid by by her campaign to endorse her.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I do know that. It's so crazy to think that and it's so crazy to think that we used to be in a world where everybody used to be performing trickery to us. Oh, I'm talking on the phone to a voter right now. And they can't do it anymore because all of us are involved in media now. All of us have little mini media accounts. So when we see somebody having a fake phone call, it's like, it's a fake phone call.
yeah,
Before we were like,
yeah.
oh, I wonder if
She
it's
had
fake
her
or
phone
not. I
like
was like,
this.
this
When
assholes.
she had her phone like this, oh, I'm talking to a voter, and she went to turn her phone like that, and it was her camera pointing
I
back.
know she's such an idiot. Oops, sorry. But seriously, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, you guys. That slipped out. Like I said, it's my first shot at politics. I'm gonna be better next time
And
and more gracious.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the chat will agree to this. Um, we ought to make this more. We ought to make this a Sunday thing to do.
I like that as long as I can talk my husband into it. He's kind of the YouTube gatekeeper for me. So, but Robert, I really want you to play that
Okay.
video.
Carla wants me to read her comment. Let me see. Okay.
I just posted it in the general chat so I could.
Biden's mental capacity deterioration shown to the nation at the presidential debate was terrifying to everyone, including the Democrats.
Oh God, it's so.
They pushed Kamala into a middle. They pushed Kamala into a middle of a election. And I mean, and I honestly do feel that, yeah, that debate. Oh my God, the debacle that debate was. Biden should have stepped out right after the debate, and if he would have stepped out right after the debate, instead of being stubborn, oh no, I can beat Trump, I can this, I can that. Yeah, I'm sure Kamala would have had more time to prepare. Yeah, and she would have ran a good, strong campaign. But shoving somebody in with only 90 days till the election, and I mean, I'll be the first to say, who had never won a primary, and I mean, like back 2020, she dropped out before the Iowa caucuses because she was running dead last. And and I think what it was when Biden realized the coup that had taken place and all these people working behind the scenes to get him out of to get him out of the race. I think just despite them all, he endorsed his VP.
It almost like, yeah. I mean, think of all the other people. I mean, you could have Gavin Newsom was basically measuring the freaking drapes at the White House 2 months earlier. I mean, if you're just going to pluck somebody from obscurity, but then on the other hand, traditionally it goes to the next in power. But it was like he was relinquishing power without relinquishing power. And it just goes back to your initial question, which was, why is it that after the debate that the undeniable now, well, who was making this decision before? Because it doesn't seem like he's coherent enough to make this decision himself. Well, I think we got the answer. I think we all got the answer during President Trump's inauguration speech, where the entire crime family was when
Trump was delivering when Trump was delivering his inaugural address, Biden went and pardoned everybody.
The entire crime family. So if you wonder who was keeping him in office, I would look no further than Jill and the crime family. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, I am being very sarcastic. I mean, I'm being very aggressive with what I'm saying right now. But how else do you spin this? How do
listen
you
to this.
spin it?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. Now listen to this. Some of the former White House aides, uh, this was after, but this was like right before Biden had left office. Um, yeah, Jill would sit in on meetings with the president in the Situation Room. So would Hunter, and
Who do you think they are?
it was Jill and Hunter pushing him behind the scenes to stay in the race.
And I just you that infuriates you because then you hear back and everyone wants to pretend we can't figure out who left the cocaine in the White House. Remember the cocaine in the White
Hunter,
House? But
Hunter
here's the
left
thing:
it.
is he's a known crack addict. He freebases. The cocaine was found with baking soda. I mean, aside from just damn it, find the touch trace DNA and make a genetic genealogy family tree to figure out who the fuck it is. But it's like, how is this guy who is bringing his crack and freebasing in the White House, sitting in on meetings? How is this person who has ulterior motives and has all these different programs? Think of her involvement in the education department in her own institutions. So that
Dr.
type of
Jill
influence,
Biden.
that type of power, and you're sitting in on the White House meetings, like, so when it boils down to it, that whole scenario, like, here's the other thing about Karine Jean-Pierre, which I actually have more sympathy for her now than I did when she was press secretary, is they weren't allowing Karine Jean-Pierre to have one-on-ones with the president. Can you imagine if you're supposed to be the vocal, like the press secretary is supposed to speak for the president. They're supposed to understand the thought process of the president. They are the mouthpiece of the president. Karine Jean-Pierre was never allowed to talk to him until the end. And one of the things she constantly said, probably so that she wasn't literally lying, was that he does more than all of us in any day. We all know that's not true. Now we know he just sleeps until noon. He's out by moonlight hours at 6 p.m. I don't know what to tell anyone. Like, I think all this obvious,
the
but I
doors
don't
to
think.
the Oval Office, Kiki, the doors to the Oval Office was open from 10 to 4. That was it. 10 to 4. Anything before or anything after would conflict with Uncle Joey's nappy time. That's what I call it. I mean, even
I'm going to be honest,
even,
it goes back to disregard for human life. I mean, if the leader of the free world falls asleep during a UN remember when he took a nap during a UN meeting? Fell asleep. If the leader of the free world has that much disregard for the nation, this is just back to the disregard for human life we have. I mean, that's all this is. Every decision, every waking moment affects hundreds of millions of people in this country and billions of people worldwide. And the man should be feeding ice cream to seagulls in Florida, as far as I'm concerned. I wish you would erase that part.
Look at the Afghan withdrawal. 13 innocent service members lost their lives that day, but from a suicide bomber at Abbey Gate, because Biden decided to give up the only thing that could have stopped him, which was Bagram Air Force Base, which was a secure air base there in the middle of Afghanistan, which was big enough to accommodate all those flights in, all those flights out. What does Biden do? He gives up Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night, and then decides that he wants to do the extraction flights from an unsecure airstrip about a mile down the road. And what does he do? He allows the Taliban to be the gate guards.
Yeah, and they saw the bomber. They were asking for permission, take out bomber. They were not granted to it. And again, it becomes these politically correct policies. And I would say, aside from that, can you imagine being someone from Afghanistan and the people that you've worked to put in prison, to get the bad guys off the street for 10 years or whatever, 20 years, you've been working to clean up the streets. And then overnight, some senile asshole opens the prisons, and all the people that you fought to put away and you talked and, fought to put away. Now these people are not only let free, but they're pilstered up as the monsters that are going to be running your society. I just can't even imagine the horror that ensued in Africa. It's unimaginable pain.
Yeah. Yeah, before the Taliban retook charge, and I like Bill Briggs' comment right here. Obama never underestimate Joe's ability to fuck things up. Obama was quoted saying that during Hillary's campaign back in 2016. But
Back when Obama actually said the things that were on his mind instead
yeah,
of what he was supposed to say from his political group. Hi, Caitlin, baby.
yeah, she's got a mouthful of freaking cinnamon breadsticks. But
I had cinnamon breadsticks. Can you play the video, Robert?
yeah. Where did you put it at?
I sent it to your DM. I also put it in the general chat.
Okay.
It's a 6-minute video, you guys. It's just peculiar. Like, can people just get along and like, can we just be like we have to be in our local cities and our local, like in a town meeting, we can't all just hate each other. We've got to come to common ground. Like our political leaders, our statesmen are such jerks for not communicating with each other.
Hold on. Oh, I think I fucked up. Hold on. Let me get that out
Jimmy
there.
Carter's funeral goes viral.
Of his eulogy.
No, people can't just get along. Well, they have to. When my point is like our cities, we have to balance our budgets. We have to like get along. Why the hell can the federal government? And I have a theory on it. It's the theory of power creating ignorance. But
No, just like going back to those 13 service members that lost their lives at Abbey Gate. What I'm going to play this video here in a minute.
Yeah.
What really irritated me, Piki, was at the dignified transfer, where the family members were getting the bodies back of their loved ones. Biden was standing there like everybody that came off, he'd check his watch, like he had some other place to be. And instead of standing there doing his duty as president, doing the dignified transfer, and quite a few of the family members, they were pissed off because they felt that he disrespected their child by checking his watch every 5 minutes, like he had someplace better to be. And I'm thinking, when I saw this, I'm thinking to myself, dude, it's your fault that these kids are dead because you deserted the most secure air base there in Afghanistan. For what? So you could take a victory lap, because you pulled us out of Afghanistan and you ended the Afghan war.
I think it boils down to that disregard for humanity, or it's like, you get a politician or a statesman and their child loses their life and they were part of the service, and you talk about it every day. You tell us how special their service was, how it's so hard you lost a military son. But then these military sons from these lower middle class families, they're not good enough to have the respect paid to them. I just don't understand. To me, it's an economic thing. It's a socioeconomic elitist.
Yeah. Bill said the VP didn't get the nomination out of Obama's second term. Hillary did. How did that happen? Just corruption, and Obama knew it. I like that comment right there. And Carlos says, I bet Obama voted for Trump. Angel D brings up a very good point right here. She said, look at the Idaho case and the way it's absolutely divided YouTube. Prime example of how people with different opinions cannot get along. In my honest opinion, I personally can tolerate opinions, but not everyone can.
I would have to say, yes, it is a good smaller example, but if you're gonna bring it up like that, we also have to see how money plays into these things. You guys can't tell me that a larger channel doesn't control the comments, they don't pump up their lives, they
Yeah.
don't pay a little extra for promotion. You know what I'm saying? Like yes, we see two people fighting, but there's always artificial fights going on. People reporting on things they don't actually believe in, false facts, fake news, because it's all about the mighty dollar and the clicks. So, you know, we do have our both ends of the political spectrum, and we have the way people don't get along, but then there's the fake fights that
Yeah.
somebody who just wants the money is constantly manipulating. And so I don't know, like, I don't even know what we see anymore. I don't know if people necessarily don't even get along that bad. Or
Okay,
just
Bill just said the problem with everyone getting along is first you have to get everyone to admit they were wrong and agree to common sense.
I don't know. I listen to facts. Like I think we can bring up facts and people can all agree on facts.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me go ahead and play that video now.
But nobody's talking about the eulogy. No one is speaking at all about what was said on stage. Instead, people are looking at the interactions.
Do you want me to
between all of
share it
the
so it's
former
not
There's a
like
funeral
that?
going on. Jr. immediately proves that this is because of bad blood, not because they can't say hi to each other.
I don't have the way to share it on my Discord. I'm in Discord. I don't have a way to share it because right now I didn't upgrade my StreamYard. So there's no way for you to share it to your channel because I haven't upgraded my StreamYard yet.
No, well, don't worry about it. It's not really that big of a deal anyway. But I don't know. I think these are really interesting subjects. I think this is really important. And I just think bringing up like an example like YouTube, how it's a smaller example of how our whole media and our political system works. It's a very, very good point, Phil. And I think we all have more in common than we believe. I just think that it's been the same way throughout time. As long as we've had government, it seems to divide itself into three different categories. You have a third of the population who wants to control every part of their destiny. We have another part of the population who wants they want to be controlled by like a king or a dictator. They want that security blanket. They want that other person providing, particularly if your own money is being taken from you to give to that entity. And then there's the other third that doesn't care. And we've been dealing with this since the founding of our country, since our revolution. Both sides are going after the side that doesn't care. That's the one that they want. And, you know, and so that's our independence. They're the ones who don't go vote. They're the ones we want to bring to our side. So the tactics that both sides use to get to that 1/3 are just a science. It's a science in itself.
Oh yeah, totally agree with you. And Angel D says many people need to be told what to do, unfortunately. And I mean, and I hate to say in today's society, that's a more common thing happening is that you have people instead of getting up and being independent and doing what they want to do, they're now being told what to do. And I mean, look at Trump. I mean, he had, he's a reality TV star. He had the Apprentice, and do you think someone told him what to do? No, he got up and he what he wanted to do, he did it. And I think that's a shame with a lot of people in this country now, especially not just this country, but around the world. They lack motivation to actually get out of bed and say, oh, you see that mountain over there? I'm going to climb it today because I want to. yeah, and they view life as a mountain that, yeah, that they want to climb, but instead of wanting to climb it, oh, I'll just do it later. Or or someone will come along and say, someone will come along and tell them what to do. That's a problem with society nowadays. Is we've lost motivation, to do simple stuff. Like back when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have laptops, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have social media. Uh, you know, we were basically thrown outside all day long and told to go play. And I'm from the generation that drank out the water hose. You know, if it was nice out, we were kicked outside. Said go play. Don't come back. Don't come back till you're either hungry or the street lights come on. And if we got thirsty while we're outside, we picked up the water hose and drank out of the water hose. And our social media uh, was going to our friend's house. Playing cars, playing cops and robbers, playing tag, uh, trying to be evil Knievel and jump our BMX bikes off of a ramp that we built from bricks and a board. And it just I see these generations now that will sit on their butt and instead of going outside to play, they would rather sit on their switches or sit on their phones or sit on their tablets. And instead of like getting up to like to drive to like McDonald's or whatever restaurant there is, they sit on the butts and order the DoorDash or order the Grubhub or whatever whatever it is. Yeah, they just lack and they expect to be paid $15 to $20 an hour, for what experience? Like they want $15 to $20 an hour to work at fucking McDonald's. And when I first started working fast food back in 1998, I was paid $5.50 an hour. That was minimum wage back then. And minimum wage is technically still $7.50. Some of these kids are lucky that most employers will pay you like $10, $11, $12 an hour. When in all actuality, that's not minimum wage. Minimum wage is $7.50. I mean, look at California, Kiki. They raised minimum wage out there to $20 an hour. Do you know how many fucking stores closed the next day? Quite a few fast food restaurants closed their doors because they couldn't afford to pay $20 an hour.
Yeah. I have so much to say on this subject. So the first thing I will say is there's definitely a hopelessness. There's definitely a hopelessness going on that we see in this generation that's coming into the workforce now and it's in the workforce. And I think a lot of it comes from the economic divide, because you bring up things like DoorDash. You bring up things, you know what, the thing about it is that a kid who doesn't have a job and is online all day, they're not going to be able to afford DoorDash. I mean, the fact that eating out in general, we make it sound like this is the norm. It is not the norm. Nobody should be able to afford to eat out. I mean, you should be able to afford, but nobody who's trying to save money or trying to do their best with their economics, if they don't have a lot of money, is going to be eating out every night, let alone getting DoorDash. Like,
Yeah.
that just shows the economic divide that's been created, and a lot of it is going on in our media that creates this hopelessness amongst kids, not realizing that they actually don't. They have more than they realize. And but the real thing I will say is when it comes to wages, I don't know how I feel about this, and I don't know what the solutions are, but I do feel that after many years, there's a group of people who are putting their foot down. And they're basically saying, this is, F you, I'm going to work. It's not the employer, it's the states that take income tax out of that. When you're already losing 25% of that paycheck to your federal programs, Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, everyone thinks that your paycheck goes to pay for the military. It doesn't. Go to the IRS website. It pays for social services. 35% of your check is going to pay for social services. And then on top of that, whatever state charges income tax. So when you're talking about somebody who makes $12 an hour, it's actually like they're more like making about 7. I mean, a lot of people, the more money you make, you start getting 45% of your paycheck taken from you, and don't even bother registering as a small business, because then after a certain point, they're easily going to be taking 45% of your paycheck. And then on top of that, these employers of small businesses, there are shitty employers out there, and there are employers who they want to start a business so they can just do what you explained, sit home and play video games. And they try to find these business models where they can treat humans like they're just commodities, and they put profit over people. And when an employer, like you open a Pizza Hut or a franchise, bad example, you open a franchise, I take it back, Pizza Hut, you go open a franchise. Well, you should be planning on working there and being part of the largest part of that workforce should be you, the owner, the boss. That's how you make money. And then you have other people supplementing it. But instead, we have these people who buy these business models online, and they call themselves entrepreneurs. And all they're trying to do is buy something somebody's already built so they can find a free way to make money. And the only way to do it is to put people over profits. And we see it again and again. You go into any pizza place and it's like, why don't you just double that kid's wage? Get them to devote themselves to you. They'll work extra hours. They'll stay with you through college. But if you try to eke them by at the littlest amount you can pay them, and then slowly bring them up 30 cents at a time, I mean, that's disrespectful to humans in general. And we've all watched it happen to our brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers who didn't have a college education, whoever had to work in the workforce without a college education and become essentially an indentured servant to continue on. So I agree with you. We have to be a nation that puts pride into work, and it has to be glorified. But when you have people who are artificially, and then there's the other part of this, which, I mean, you guys, if you don't have a position on illegal immigration, and I'm not talking about immigration, I'm talking about illegal immigration, how can you sit there and say, raise wages, when you bring in 20 new people into your city who are willing to work for that wage? What business is going to do that? Why would you raise your wage if somebody's willing to work for that wage? So just think about it next time you say, oh, McDonald's, you should be paying $25 an hour. Well, you know what? Stop flooding the city with people that are willing to work for 10.
And
because you don't even make your living situations feasible. I mean,
and see what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of these migrants that come in are seasonal farm workers, and they'll come in, and I mean, yes, they'll work for barely nothing, and they'll be out in the fields, picking our produce, and helping with the with the produce on these farms. If Trump gets rid of all these migrants that are coming in, and knowing that they're basically the backbone of the farms that hire them to pick the produce, do you really think some little 16-year-old skinny geek Gen Zer is going to be out in that fucking field picking that fruit and picking those vegetables?
I don't want machines to take over that. I want the migrant workers. Those are working visas. So I don't know what Trump's planning on doing with working visas. And frankly, all I'm saying, well, I have not seen that he suspended all working visas, because our migrant workers are the fuel of our a lot of our food in this country, and I don't want machines and chemicals taking that over. But as far as illegal immigration, that's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about migrant workers. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
immigration to this country. I am only talking about somebody who broke the law to come here.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Thomas just said the government has no right to regulate wages and involve itself in commercial enterprise other than regulate working conditions, allow the free market to determine wage standards. And I like that comment from Thomas. Yeah, and I feel it's good that that we can all a lot of us clearly in the chat right now a lot of us like talking about politics, and we don't like talking about politics when we do our true crime stuff.
Mhm.
And Thomas just stated, does anyone recall the Mexican worker program in the 1980s, or am I dating myself? Yeah. Now I've heard of that. I've heard of that program. Um, and Phil just said undocumented. Undocumented is undocumented. Um, Now there's this farm in Arizona that has cooperation of this small village, the small town in Mexico, and they pay their migrant farm workers well.
Yeah,
And
Chavez is where I was going with this too. Yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
and and they pay their migrant farm workers well. Now, because of this deportation thing, those farmers in Arizona are now worried that the working agreement they have with those migrants on the other side of the border is going to be impacted. And one of the farmers says, "Who are we going to get now to pick our crops?" And he says, "I don't think a 16-year-old Gen Zer is going to want to get out in the middle of this field in the hot sun and pick vegetables. So what do we do?" And yeah, and they're very concerned about who's going to pick the vegetables if all the migrant farm workers aren't allowed across the border. And this one farmer stated that he hopes that his crops don't rot on the vine. Uh, because I mean, yes, undocumented is undocumented, but still at the same time, yeah, you do have essential workers, that work in the fields.
100%, we should call them essential workers. Again, I'm definitely standing by the migrant worker program. I don't know another way for us to have natural food the way it's part of our system right now. It's part of our food belt of the United States. But I want to go back to this comment about Hugo Chavez. I'm not I'm not old enough to remember exactly what you're talking about, but I'm seeming to remember Hugo Chavez involved in this migrant discussion. So back, I want to say it was this what Phil is bringing up from the 60s, but basically we had this migrant problem. We've always had immigration issues, and it's always up to the president to decide how we deal with it. But there was such an influx of migrant workers coming into the US. It was actually the migrant workers themselves. And I know Hugo Chavez was involved some way. But they were the ones who said, you know what, America, if you're not going to stop this, if you're not going to stop these free people coming in, destroying our system because they were getting paid a fair wage. And then when you flood it with a bunch of people who are willing to work for anything and live illegally,
Yeah.
then you ruin the system that's already there. So it was the migrant workers themselves from Mexico that went and blocked the border and said, go away. You're not taking our jobs. You're not taking our opportunity. You're not squelching or watering down what our employers will pay us because you're going to turn us into slave labor, basically. So it was the migrants themselves who fought back.
Thomas said, I fought Chavez and the United Farm Workers in the 1970s on behalf of my parents and chased him away. Have you any idea of their union requirements? They are absurd. And then, he stated it again.
So I guess he was on the other side of the argument. Like I said, I'm not old enough I don't know
in the 1960s, there was the guest worker program, which allowed workers from Mexico to perform labor and then return to Mexico. And I think that's what, these farmers in Arizona, what they're a part of is the guest workers program, where the workers come across the border to do the farm work, and then they go back. They go back to their home in Mexico. And yeah, and where this village is about a mile away from the farm, in Arizona, on the other side of the border. So they'll come across the border, do the farm work, then they'll go back. And that's why the farmers in Arizona are worried, because they're part of this they're a part of the guest worker program, and they're afraid with all these deportations, it's gonna null and void the program.
I think what you're saying, you know what you're saying, and then what Thomas said, what it's like, the thought that's coming to my mind is you're bringing up what the farmers are saying, and I think before I speak on this more, I really should educate myself on what the farmers are saying. I'd like to know their position on this. We have to pay attention to the people that feed us, and frankly, I mean, I have a favorable view on the guest worker and migrant worker program, but I don't know enough about these programs. I know that I'm not always okay with the way that we issue work visas in this country. So maybe I might have a problem with this too. It's an interesting subject. I'll have to find out more about it.
Now, you do have this thing called the H-1B visa, or it's for highly skilled workers, and Musk is very interested in this program, and because he's looking for more workers for his Tesla factories. And basically the H-1B visa program brings in highly skilled migrants from other countries, like from India and other places like that. And basically, according to this one Democratic congresswoman, the H-1B visa is basically just slave labor. It's for highly skilled migrants that are good at like manufacturing and shit like that, but it's used by the biggest corporations as slave labor.
I love you, Daddy.
Love you too, baby. Yeah, it's used as slave labor, and if you're hired with one of these H-1B visas, your pay is like peanuts to a fucking elephant. You don't get good pay at all. You basically worked like a slave, and that's the only drawback and crux to this program is it's almost like slave labor, and Elon Musk is chomping at the bit because he really wants these migrant workers in his Tesla factory, because they're slave labor to him.
I know like a couple people on this H-1B visa. I know a couple of the different type of visas in this area. And what I think is interesting, I think it's the H-1B, but there are certain requirements. You're allowed to work while you're here, and then you get a certain amount of time off. I wonder though, like the people that I know who are involved in it, like I have a sister-in-law from Africa. I've talked about this before. She came to this country on a visa to visit when she was a kid. Nothing to do with, marrying into our family. But my point is this: she came on this visa, and so I know a little bit about it. But what they talk about, that money you get paid, okay? So we think in terms of the U.S., right? U.S. dollars. But number one, that money that they get paid, when it goes back to Africa, you got the exchange. So number one, it's worth so much more than it is in American currency. And number two, they don't have to pay taxes on it. So right there, it's worth more to them than we actually picture it. So what we picture $100 as, for example, is something like $600 or $1,000, $600 or $1,000, depending on where you are in the world, to take that money back from the US and have the currency exchange and have the tax break because you're not an American citizen. So you
Yeah.
are making a lot of the people who are from other countries, depending on which ones, like, for instance, people from like the Czech Republic or something, they would end up making twice as much as the not twice as much, but it'd be like, 40% more, 35% more in American dollars because they didn't have to pay taxes. And then it would go back to their European country and then it was worth like 6 times more, or back to Africa worth 10 times more, So yeah, in appearance by American money standards, but it's not happening in a US vacuum. That's why when you see someone
Yeah.
coming as a migrant worker and they're getting paid $10 an hour, when they take that money where they don't have to pay US tax dollar on it and they go back to Guatemala or they go back to El Salvador, the currency exchange for that US dollar it supports generations of the family. I
Yeah,
mean,
which is I'm kind of wondering, is why tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like Trump doesn't like migrants. It feels like that because, I mean, who was it? Caroline Levitt stated that if you come across the border of the United States, you're a criminal. Because you broke the law coming across the border. I mean, and because a lot of migrants do the legal pathways to citizenship, and Biden set up the CBP1 app to kind of open the door for legal citizenship, legal pathways to citizenship. First day in office, Trump dismantles the CBP1 app, and all appointments that were already set up, prior to his inauguration, that were set up with immigration judges and asylum judges, all those appointments were canceled. And Trump states that he likes migrants and he don't mind them in the country as long as they come here legally. Well, I mean, how are they going to come here legally if you basically dismantled the app that would help them get here legally?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that app was less than a year old.
Yeah.
That app was less than 6 months old. So
Yeah.
he didn't do away with a program that was like some sort of artery for immigration. And here's the problem. It's the country of origin. If you are seeking asylum, refugee status, it specifically states in international law, you go to the first safe country. What is the first safe country? Mexico.
Yep.
This is not fair for Mexico to not be taking. If Mexico needs help with the refugees, if Mexico needs help with asylum, then that's one thing. But to legally immigrate here, you guys, I help with hiring paperwork. So I've done quite a few different pieces of paperwork from people from Brazil, and good people who want a better life for their family work really hard to find a legal pathway to citizenship. Now, these aren't citizens, but they have every legal right to work here. They pay into Social Security. They pay into all of our federal programs. They did everything right, and they came here legally, and they're living within their means. They're just great citizens. Okay, that is somebody who wanted a better life and wants to immigrate here. And people from the same countries just wanting to seek asylum, but not have a legitimate asylum claim. Like, I guess I'm conflating two issues.
Okay, now I have a hypothetical for you, Kiki.
Okay.
Say one of these say one of these Brazilian workers that work for you and your husband. Say one day ICE shows up at your door looking for these Brazilian workers. because they state that they're here illegally, and they're going to deport them back to Brazil. What do? If you have an ICE agent standing at your door, wanting, and because now apparently the DHS has now authorized raids on workplaces and churches.
Here's the thing though. I worked, so we worked really hard to be a legal business. Okay.
Yeah.
We pay a lot of money that we don't want to. It'd be so easy to cut corners. It would be so easy to not do all the measures, but we do all the measures. We have a payroll company. I go through and I verify with the IRS. I am a translator. I write and sign my name that I have looked at this documentation. I have taken copies of it. I have proven this person has a legal right to work in this country. If I showed up at my door, I'd say, let me go get the file, bitch. This person's here legally. Here's all their paperwork. It's not going to happen because they're not after my people. They're not after productive citizens of this country. They're after the people who tried to skirt past the system and they broke a law, or they had an asylum claim and it wasn't legitimate. And if you're flying somebody from Brazil to the United States on an asylum claim, how is that the first available safe country?
Yeah.
Mexico, hello. Mexico, do your part. Mexico, stop taking all of our money and not doing your part to help the humanitarian situation we have going on. They are the gatekeepers to all of this. Why do you think they can stop immigration overnight? And I mean, they don't, it's pretty easy for them. They just stop the caravans or they get up at the border. So, I mean, it's all an illusion, smoke and mirrors, I feel like, or how it's making me feel.
Trump has now tariffed Canada.
Oh, Thomas.
25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And apparently Trump don't realize that the tariffs don't hurt them. The tariffs hurt us. Because if say, Trump's planning, I guess by yesterday, to tariff Canada, Mexico, and China, and that doesn't hurt them. That hurts us because a lot of our imports come from Canada, Mexico, and China. And now Canada is talking about doing a 25% tariff on us because Trump did it on them. So that's going to hurt our economy. You never just wildly throw a tariff out there, and thinking, oh, if I throw a tariff out, it's gonna hurt the other country. No, it's not. It's gonna hurt our country. And personally, I don't think Trump really cares.
I mean, I think it's a political philosophy. I know that a lot of people do believe that, but I think we've seen some real life experiments with tariffs in the last 10 years. So like, I definitely get where your position is coming from, where what the, because I think the timber industry is a good example in Canada, with them coming down, flooding us with timber. And by putting a tariff on it, it might, I understand it, but I'm going to forget everything I just said. Okay. I'm new to talking politics. So the one example I will bring up is the real life example we have when Trump came into office last time, when he was talking about the currency manipulation with China. And so he threatened tariff. We watched China not only respond, but respond in like real time to tariffs and respond in a positive way that helped our economy. They started playing a little more fair with the places where they were applying the tariffs or threatening to apply the tariffs. You remember when Mexico was threatened with a tariff, border crossings shut down. Okay. We don't, and then people get around the tariffs. Like you have China shipping the auto parts into Mexico. They have them assembling the cars in Mexico and bringing them across the American border so they can get away with their tariff. Like we should be able to fight back. Like these
And look at
tariffs.
Colombia. Look what Colombia did. You know, freaking
Yeah.
Colombia wasn't allowing military planes full of its own people to land. So Trump threatened them with a tariff. An hour later, the president of Colombia was allowing those military transports to land with its own people. So Trump used a tariff as a threat to get Colombia to do what he wanted.
Yeah, we all know what Colombia did. That's, you know, if you're watching right now and you're not aware of what Colombia did, shipping, and it's not just Colombia. I shouldn't, you know, crime rate in El Salvador is like at 0 right now because, you know, they emptied their prisons and their
Yeah.
mental institutions and they put them in here. That's your neighbor. That's the person, you know, when you're scared of ICE showing up, they're not coming for my people, like my workers. They're coming for the freaking people that were let out of prisons and mental institutions in El Salvador and flooded our streets. You know, there were 2 apartment buildings in Arizona completely taken over by gangs.
That's Colorado.
They were forced property rights over in
That's
America.
Colorado.
Or Colorado. I mean, like, how is that even a story? Like, how is this? I mean, why is the military there? The second that somebody shows up with an AK taking property rights from an American citizen, where was the military? Like, where does a governor have the right to allow that type of terrorism?
Oh, because Colorado is a sanctuary state. Yeah.
I'm not Swamp Rose, by the way. I'm Kiki Peru for anyone watching.
But yeah. But what happened there in Colorado with that gang taking over those apartment complexes? Colorado was a sanctuary state. Yeah, basically, they were telling all migrants, "Come to our state. We're a sanctuary state. You have nothing to worry about here." Look what freaking happened. Yeah, you had a gang take over 2 freaking apartment buildings, by gunpoint.
I look at all the cities that did that. They made Manchester, New Hampshire, where I'm from, a sanctuary city. I mean, it's a very conservative state, but you guys, the Merrimack River, one of the most beautiful waterways, supplies fresh water to like so much of southern New Hampshire. You guys, they had tent cities set up under one of the bridges. People going to the bathroom in the water, washing themselves, dumping whatever it is, their fuel, their, every piece of untreated human waste water going into our beautiful Merrimack River, an entire village of these people doing it. Like, how is in a civilized society, how is that allowed? I mean, there are trespassing laws. Like the idea of the sanctuary city, it goes beyond helping out citizens. It outright says, we're giving you a get out of jail free card for you to do anything you want. Basically, you want to poop on the sidewalk, go for it.
Look what happened in San Francisco under fucking Gavin Newsom. San Francisco is a fucking horrible now. It's like San Francisco and Sacramento and Oakland are like a third world fucking country now. Because I mean, like in San Francisco, you have the homeless shooting up drugs on the street, pissing and shitting in the street, and the only time Gavin Newsom cleaned that shit up was because the Chinese consulate was coming to town. Yeah, with Xi Jinping, and the Chinese president was coming to San Francisco, and man, he had that shit cleaned up in like less than a fucking day, and he had it looking like something out of the Wizard of Oz, and bright and shiny and new. The day after the Chinese president left, it was back to being a shithole. Well, when just like they passed this new proposition in California called Prop 36. You had all those the smash and grabs. Now in California, any theft over $1,000 is a felony. And this, because I saw a story on it. These two black girls were, they went into a Sephora's and stole a bunch of shit in there, walked out, walked 2 blocks down to Ross's, and they started stealing some shit in there. As they're walking out, they get stopped by store security, and they take off running, and you can see you can see this body cam shaking, and it's these 2 cops chasing after these girls. And when one of the cops caught up to the girls, because he kept saying, stop, stop, you're under arrest, get down on the ground. She wouldn't listen. So when he caught up to her, he took his hand, and you could see it in body cam. He took his hand and slammed her ass to the fucking ground. And they're sitting in the back of the cop car, and these 2 girls are talking, and you know, and the girl on the right goes, man, what happened? We didn't get caught for it last time. What happened? And the other girl says, man, this is Orange County, fool. They just made anything over $900 a felony. And the girl says, I just got off probation for doing the exact same thing. She goes, now I'm looking at 10 years in prison for shoplifting. Or they're calling it retail theft, and it's now a felony in the state of California. With
I
a
stopped.
10-year prison sentence.
You guys, I used to buy. I'm really good at like spotting like a fake or an authentic whatever online. And for years, I bought things on eBay. And I think a few years ago, I had to get, it was during the Biden administration. It was when all the smash and grabs started, like during the Schmamic. And I remember I went on to get a dress for something I had to go to. And so, of course, I go onto eBay trying to find like a nice designer dress with a good retail price. And I found this Lily Pulitzer dress, and I ended up negotiating this dress. I mean, I ended up getting this really, really expensive dress, like a $200 or $300 dress. I ended up getting it for like $30 or $40. And then it happened again. Like I needed something else. And I'm like, what is going on? How am I able to get these incredibly expensive dresses for like $30 and $40? And then I realized what was going on. I mean, it was everything. It was my makeup. And I'm like, how is it so easy to get my foundation or to get, a resale? And it was like, I used to have a problem with fakes. Like they used to fake everything, even like things you wouldn't even believe. Like, just a $20 thing of foundation. They used to fake it on eBay, and I got very good at, figuring out what was authentic and fake. But this was different. This was all real stuff. And then I realized what was going on is they were reselling the smash and grabs, because I'd go and I'd look for Chanel makeup, and they'd have like, it'd be this like little closet eBay seller, and she'd have like every shade of Chanel. It was really bad. It was really bad. And they would usually work and turn it over to like a fake thrift shop and stuff like that. So I just stopped buying them because I realized like morally what I was doing was I was buying stolen goods. I was buying hot items. And there's nothing that I'm ever going to pretend. I can't pretend I don't know that. I'm not going to do it. So I stopped buying.
Thomas said, great podcast, Robert. I pray God's divine favor over your endeavor.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm so grateful you had me on your podcast. I feel bad. I hope I wasn't like too aggressive, you guys. I just want to bring the energy to Robert.
Caitlin made this for AR and Jen.
Oh, is that Xander? Is the little one Xander?
No, it's she said AR's the blue hair, Jen's the pink hair.
What's the little purple one? Is Xander?
No, by you.
Oh,
no, Aspen. She said she likes Aspen. So the purple little ball is Aspen. I'm like, I'm like, well, baby, I said, you know, they have 3 dogs, right? She goes, I know. I just like Aspen.
That's okay. Most people like Xander, so now we have Aspen has some attention.
Thomas says, Kiki and her makeup reminds me of my wife and her shoes.
If I didn't have to wear practical shoes, I would be a shoe person. But I can't.
Thomas says, Kiki, don't stop. This country needs to hear the truth and start thinking for themselves. Amen to that, Thomas. Well, we've been live for like 2.5 hours, if you want to call it quits.
Yeah, we probably
I know you said something about you wanting to do an Idaho 4 live.
I'm not, but I think after this, I'm gonna finish filming. I started making a video yesterday, and I think probably after this, I don't know, but I'm not gonna go live. I was thinking of going live at 1, but I think at this point,
it's now like 2:30 your time.
yeah. It's been a good podcast, Robert. What a wonderful thing to have me on and talk about this stuff. So, I hope I wasn't too, like I said, opinionated.
No, you're okay.
Trying to get the other side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do this again next Sunday, we could. People seem to enjoy it. You know, people seem to enjoy it today. You know, we had a very active chat. Yeah, and when Carl and I do it, our chat's like not active. Probably because people. Yeah, he said people don't like to hear him spit facts. And yeah, no, I think when he spits facts, it comes off as know-it-all.
I think that my favorite. So here's my fear is that I'm going to say something to someone in chat and offend them. But my thought is if I have Robert up here and Robert gives the other opinion and then I give the other side, it doesn't turn necessarily everybody off in the chat because they know there's somebody up here to represent them and represent their opinion in the podcast.
Yeah, and I'm an independent voter. I mean, I was Republican in 2016 and 20. I mean, I was Republican for the majority of my life, and I voted for Trump in 2016 in not knowing exactly what kind of person he really was. And then I voted for him. You know, I didn't vote for him in 2020, and then this time around I voted for RFK Jr. Not knowing that what I know now is a vote for RFK was a vote for Trump. Because I didn't know that he was just in the race to take votes away from Kamala. Now, if RFK hadn't been in the race, maybe Kamala would have won. Because what they were doing was the votes that came in for RFK they were being added to Trump's. Because RFK did ask numerous times, that to be taken off the ballot, because he was dropping out of the race and he wanted to be taken off the ballot, and a lot of these states refused to take him off the ballot, and they kept his name on the ballot, which I think in the end kind of hurt Kamala a little bit.
Yeah, and that's a tough one to get around too, because it's like overhauling an entire, I don't know, but I think that you're right. That a vote for RFK was a vote for Trump, not literally, but metaphorically. And I've always had problems with that. Like, I always like people in the Libertarian Party I want to vote for. And I'm like, well, and I'm basically told, well, if you vote for that person, it's basically you're taking away from the Republican Party. You're taking away from the conservative who could win. And I don't know how I feel about that, because then how is anybody ever going to run for president? Like, how is anybody not a Republican or not a Democrat going to win? Do we just not vote for people who aren't one of the two-party system? It's an interesting concept, but I would agree with everything you just said. I do think in this situation, whether that was his intention or not, in this situation, a vote for RFK was generally speaking a Democratic vote that would have gone to Kamala otherwise. So you're right. But I see why you voted for
Okay,
him.
Phil
He's
said,
so
Robert,
charismatic.
that's not true. Phil said, Robert, that's not true at all. Kamala couldn't beat Trump regardless. Yeah, and I tend to agree with that to a point. What what they should have done. Is like what Nancy Pelosi stated that when Biden dropped out, they were going to have an open primary at the Democratic convention, and she wasn't expecting, as soon as Biden dropped out, he endorsed Kamala, and I think the only reason why he endorsed Kamala was to say "f you" to the people that got him out of the race, and I think that was was deliberate to do that, so they couldn't get a stronger candidate. Because some of the names that were being bounced around for the open primary was Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer. Now I don't know why she decided to pick Tim Walz as a vice presidential pick. Josh Shapiro, who's the governor of Pennsylvania, he would have been a very strong VP pick, or he would have been a very strong presidential pick. Because Josh Shapiro, yes, he's Jewish, but he don't play around. And you had her pick Tim Walz from Minnesota. Yeah, I'm not making fun of anybody. The little bouncing white-haired fat man who wanted to give inmates sex changes in prison. If they aligned as transgenders, he wanted to give them sex changes in prison. I think she should have picked a stronger candidate, a VP pick, instead of Tim Walz.
The first thing about Tim Walz, I have two thoughts on this. Number one is, if that's who she thought was going to represent the majority of Americans or get the majority of Americans to favor us, what is wrong with Kamala Harris's perception of the American populace? Like, you think that we're going to relate to somebody who, I'm not trying, allegedly lies about or misrepresents their service, lies about simple things like whether they were the head coach of a local team, like someone who she thinks just because he had the name Hunter, or title Hunter, and was from the Midwest at some point, that somehow here's what it is it feels like slight bigotry. Like, this is what I think these people do and look like. No like substance to why are you picking this person. But then the second thing that makes me think is, okay, if she thinks that this is the guy that we relate to the most, maybe it's not that. Maybe this is just the guy who has done so many sleazy ass favors. Now he's being put into the vice presidential role to repay them. I don't know. This is all allegedly. I'm speculating because why would you pick him? Like, what about, like, no offense if you're watching, but why would you get picked for president? How do you represent this country? Explain it to us. How do you represent the country? Because as far as we know, we saw the way you governed during Schmeck, and it was not the American way. So why do you represent us? Like, why did she pick it? Is it her own twisted view of what the population is, or did he do enough favors that he got rewarded with the vice presidential nomination?
And see right here, Phil just said, Tampon Tim, feminine hygiene in grade school boys' bathrooms. Really? And and I mean, Tim, sorry, Phil, I called you Tim. Just like right there, that's what Tim Walz was wanting to do. He was wanting to put tampons in grade school boys' bathrooms. Why?
Or like, why are we even at this conversation when there are literally children, 250,000 children missing in this country right now? We just
Yeah.
handed them over to randoms. Why do we care? Why are we even talking about this? Go find the missing children that went missing in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Find those 500,000 children, and then can we have a discussion about some stupid shit they're gonna do, that the
Yeah.
PTA has to talk about? And why is the government even involved in this? Like, what? There is no legislative mandate that talks about this right or capacity in the stalls. Why is the PTA not taking care of this? What does Tim Walsh have to do with that subject? Why aren't the mommies and the daddies taking care of that subject? I just don't get it. I never will. And more like
And-
500,000. I know I'm being very mild with that number.
Yeah.
Um,
And for Kiki, for all we know, for all we know, these missing kids could either be working in a sweatshop, could be being trafficked for in the sex trade. We don't know exactly what happened to these kids that were basically handed off at the border to quote unquote sponsors.
Well, the way the sponsorship program, and so you got to also, there is another aspect to it, which is a lot of these children may have been placed in their actual families, and
Yeah.
everybody's just here illegally.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's the shame part, is if you put it into an NGO, instead of taking it from the government, you put it into an NGO, just gets a blanket grant. The NGO can spend that money how they want. So, okay, we're going to pay for this type of housing and that type of housing. No
Yeah.
need to prove you're a citizen. No need to prove you're here legally to get this government money, because it's filtered through an NGO.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these kids, it could be a family of 5, and they just all get reunited in one place. And it turns out there's just, everybody's just undocumented. But we don't know that. And just like you said, a lot, if a kid comes over independently from his family, they were talking about a guy down in Florida who would go down to the whistleblower for one of the foster care offices there, where somebody would come in and they just can't, I'd like to sponsor one kid around the age of 13. And the kid would talk about how tired he was, how he'd
Yeah.
go to school all day, and then he'd have to go work on this guy's farm. And that's how he paid for his room and board. That wasn't
Yeah.
extra money. That was how he paid to live here and go to school. 13. And these kids are all ages. And so it's not just about the sex trafficking and stuff like that. And I really got to get off the phone. My husband is calling.
All righty.
We've been on the live way
Yeah.
too long.
Yeah. I'm getting ready. Yeah. Hopefully your husband will let you do this again next Sunday, because I really had fun. And I know the chat had fun. Okay. Thomas said, Thomas, we really need to get off here. According to the latest FBI stats, the majority of missing children work in manufacturing and labor-based industries, with the remainder involved in the sex industry. You're muted.
Probably the most important message we could end this podcast with is, where is the children? Where are the children? Where are the
Yeah.
children? And let's find the children. If we're going to focus on deporting and ICE, find the children.
Yeah.
ICE, can you
baby.
find the children, please? ICE, like,
Yeah, it just reminds me of that song, Ice, Ice Baby.
dun,
When,
dun, 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 dun.
Bill had an interesting statement right here. The NGOs pay their individual administrations and operating costs first.
Oh yeah. And there's no, if people wouldn't be doing this. It used to be, if it were just my Catholic church, yeah, maybe, but it isn't. And when if you're part of a congregation in this country, which I know Thomas is familiar with what I'm going to say, a lot of that is filtered through the United Church of Christ, and we all know that's not a church, and we all know it doesn't stand for Christ. And they were. I remember this back, 15 years ago, talking about the 60,000 when Obama was in office. He brought over like 60,000 refugees from Africa. I can't remember which country it was. In my a church happened to be involved in the United Church of Christ. And remember how we all rallied, the government was coming and they were putting them up and it was all secret. Nobody got to know who they were, where they were going to protect them. The NGO, the United Church of Christ I was involved with, could put them in these cities in New Hampshire. And we were like, my job, like I helped find like kitchen utensils for these refugees, My point is this, is that you get the NGOs doing it, but there's money. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're not doing it to be Christly. They're getting paid the government, and it's not going to your church, and it's not going to the Baptist church down here, and it's only going to churches who believe in extremely who do not believe Jesus Christ is supernatural. I'm serious. It only really goes to those churches, allegedly, speculating in my opinion. If you believe Christ is supernatural, you automatically get cut out from these NGO programs.
Thomas had he had a closing comment. Someone please explain to me how a NGO, a non-governmental organization, be affected by a stoppage of federal funds. NGOs are a front.
Right. They shouldn't be affected. They're not for profit, and it's the same thing with our government city programs. You look at a worker and you say, you need to cut back on these spending. And they go, we can't do that. If we cut back on spending, they're not going to, we have to spend to a certain quota or they cut us back. Yeah. That's the problem with these, government programs is they're set up for you to grow. And the second you don't grow, they cut you. And so the workers who work there want to sustain their programs. And it starts this stupid cycle that we see going on in our local city governments where they like take federal funds.
Thomas says, preach it, Kiki.
It's not going to be like this next time. I won't be preachy again, but it's hard when you talk about politics. Like I'm supposed to contain those thoughts and only talk about them under certain circumstances. And I think that when you don't talk about them a lot, maybe I'm not like as good with my words as I should be. And I will get better at that. And I really got to go because I can hear my husband like coming for me now.
All right.
I got to go. I love you guys. Thank you for having me on, Robert. Thank you, chat. It was nice to see all of you. Have a great weekend.
You guys have a good weekend. And if you're not already subscribed to the Patriot Podcast, please do so. And this might be a new thing for me and Kiki on the weekends only, hopefully. So I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.